Hello, and welcome to the Expanse. I'm actually Quack, and I hope your day is less quack than mine. Today we're going to be looking at sound in World of Warcraft. If you'd like to support the creation of this content, hit the subscribe button. If you like this content, hit the like button, and if you'd like to stay notified on the Quackery, hit the bell, or you can follow me on Twitter. I'd also like to thank Lhok and Skinnyfatperson from the Shinies and Lucydos Discord for contributing some ideas to this theory. To begin with, let's just get the speculation I'm implying out of the way. Sound in World of Warcraft is an element. It's similar to the other elements of fire, air, earth, and water. And if you've watched my Time Magic Explain content, a link will be provided, this theory is very similar to the idea that time itself is an element. Now, where does this idea come from? Well, it starts with the sirens of Tierguard sound, and the simple question of, how are they doing that? How are the sirens mind-controlling sailors with just their voices? I mean, I know there's the IRL reference, but as in-game magic goes, it's not exactly like it's common, or at least that's what I thought. This is where the notion of sound starts to rear its head, for there aren't many creatures that use sound to mind control other beings. But there are actually a lot of creatures that use sound in other ways, and I'm not just talking about the simple screeches of harpies and pterodracs. There are banshees and their screams. Not only are banshee screams chilling to the bone, they also have certain effects on the undead and living. These effects do not pertain to a normal voice. A perfect example of this is how Nathnos Blightcaller was brought into the ranks of the Forsaken. Sylvanas, the Banshee Queen, used her voice, possibly her wail, to pull his spirit back to the person he once was, and out of the mindless state of being undead. There are also the Naharu. The Naharu are basically seeing crystals that seem to be either attuned to the light or the void. As Rakesh said,
it makes music when you beat it. What?
It's an ugly statement, but the Naharu seem to be heavily related to sound. There are also the numerous gongs and bells that have been scattered around Azeroth that usually relate to the calling or unlocking of great power. The best two examples of these are the Scarab Gong, which was used to help seal and eventually unlock Anchorage, and the Divine Bell, which was used by the Mogu to empower themselves and demoralize their enemies. There are also names and locations that are oddly related to sound. Storm Song Valley was named after the first Galterian to hear the whispers of the sea. There's also Forest Song in Ashenvale, which was named as such because it's apparently the one place in the forest where the sounds of the forest are still. You also have Maya's Shadow Song's name, and considering her attitude and actions, her last name does not seem to be a coincidence. The Moonwells give off a slight audible chime that you can hear if you listen to them closely enough. There are wind chimes which have been used by various cultures in-game to ward off evil spirits. And another good example is hir'eek, the lower of bats. Bats in WoW are very similar to bats IRL. They aren't blind, but they do use echolocation. hir'eek's tail of the lower heavily implies the bat lower uses some form of sonic magic that not only allows him to dispel negative effects, but also see what other creatures cannot, which is very intriguing because this lends itself to the idea that demon hunters and the lower of bats may have something in common with each other. Demon hunters are literally blind. They have their eyes burned out, yet as we know, they can see more than most. Now, it can be argued demon hunters acquire a form of echolocation in spectral sight. The implication here being demon hunters acquire a form of magic very similar to hir'eek. However, hir'eek overall has greater control over sound and can use it for other purposes. So as you can see, sound is used in a lot of different ways by a lot of different creatures in ways that are far from normal. Obviously, however, I still haven't explained why I think sound is an element and what element sound is related to. All of the examples I gave use different forms of magic. A good example of this are demon hunters and the Naharu. One obviously uses spell, the other uses the light. However, both use sound. Now, if you haven't watched my WoW Cosmology Explain content, I suggest you do, but basically in it I explain how the elements can be influenced by 6 magics, and if this occurs, the properties of the elements change. This explanation is applicable to this theory because it explains why sound doesn't relate to just one of the 6 magics, and also has varying uses. It's because sound is an element that has been influenced by the 6 magics. Also, if you've been playing WoW since BC, then you know from the examples I've listed earlier, I missed out on one being that directly relates to sound, and has been a relative mystery ever since it first appeared. That being Murmur, the last boss of the Shadow Labyrinth. Murmur is strange for a few reasons, however the two main reasons that relate to this theory are A, his classification as an elemental, and B, the majority of his abilities being specifically related to sound. The obvious implications with Murmur is a sound elemental that uses sonic energy, though as you're already probably processing, Murmur's presence is unprecedented. What type of element uses sound energy? I mean, not even air elementals use anything described as sound energy. So if Murmur isn't related to air, what is it related to? And the answer I have is sound is related to spirit. I know that's another what statement, but just hear me out. There are two possibilities for this explanation. The first and more plausible one is sound is a sub-element. Elementals have been shown to take on various forms of the same element. For example, there are fire and ember elementals, water and waveling elementals, air and breeze elementals, the list goes on. The theory here is that sound is a sub-element of spirit, with the standard spectral spirits we see normally as the main element. The other tie to spirit here comes from all the examples I gave. The reason is, in some way, shape or form, all of the examples I mentioned seem to relate to the manipulation and or observation of spirit. Even Murmur has a significant relation to spirit, as the creature was summoned in the ruins of the Arkandu, a place saturated in spirit. And even as the Shadow Council tried to summon Murmur on Altered Draenor again, the summoning location was on the outskirts of the Court of Souls. And also, if you consider Demon Hunter's Sight a form of magical echolocation, then it's likely they're using spirit, or subvariant sound, to distinguish the magical aspects of what they are seeing. Hence why they can see through a demon's disguise. Now, the second and more quacked possibility is sound is the element of spirit, and our understanding of the soul, spirits, etc., has been wrong. And when I say wrong, what I mean is, to my understanding, at present, most, if not all, spectral beings are considered to be spirits that consist of spirit and maybe one of the 6 magics depending on the circumstances. But basically, spirits relate to the magic spirit. If the theory is accurate, then what I'm getting at is spectral beings are not spirit alone, but what they actually are spirit and decay, or more precisely, sound and memory. Now, to skip a very long explanation, basically in Time Magic Explained, I get at the idea the element of decay is time magic, but what I also get at is the idea that time magic might also be memory magic. And overall, just for this theory, think of decay magic as a cross between the ability to manipulate time and the very concept of time in World of Warcraft being a memory, or memories. How all of this relates to sound and spirit is that I am basically saying to control spirit, you need to control sound. The terms are basically interchangeable. The implication, if this is true though, is to control a spirit, a spectral being, you need to control sound, spirit, or memory, decay, as spectral beings are made up of both. I will say now though, this theory is more of a statement than anything else. As proof, sound alone is spirit is far from abundant. However, if sound is spirit, and spectral beings are a mix of both spirit and decay, then the understanding of sound and memory being spirit and decay would ironically be the most technically sound description of what a soul without the 4 elements would be, as in a creature that has no physical matter but is still a creature all the same. Either way, sound and its influence is subtly present in World of Warcraft. Because of the array of magics that use sound, it's heavily indicated that sound is an element. However, it is not related to the element of air. Due to the effects sound has on the universe, it seems sound is related to the element of spirit. How does sound, being a magic in the universe, affect the story of WoW? Well, at present, it really doesn't. It just arms you with another piece of knowledge that you can use to understand the World of Warcraft universe a bit better. But, with all that said, do you think this is plausible or possible? Leave a comment. Best speculation is always done with the community. But if you'd prefer to talk about your lore though, I usually hang out in the Shinies and Lucydos Discord, and even if I'm not there, the small community that usually is amazing to talk lore, speculation, or anything World of Warcraft with. But until next time, have a nice day!